We're talking about Star Wars Battlefront II. Now, I know Dana has already said the game is horrible. Mr. Lugo is actually playing it for review right now. There's a lot of things that happened with this game this week. More importantly, or in particularly, the whole issue of them suspending the microtransactions because of the bad feedback that they got. You know, I know the story was posted on CNN and several other places. So before we get into the whole issue with the microtransactions, tell us your thoughts on Star Wars Battlefront, Mr. Lugo, and a lot of the issues that are going on with this game.
So before I get into my impressions of stuff, if you guys haven't heard the news already, again, just to recap a little bit, basically EA took out the microtransactions where you could pay real money for the crystals in the game to purchase different collectibles, different, skins and characters that you could play as, or even perks, which are the star cards in Star Wars Battlefront 2, both for online play and also for offline play, like not the campaign, but like, you know, the arcade stuff and everything else. So basically, that a lot of the reason why that happens because there's been a big controversy with how much and of the grind it is to unlock a lot of the content in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Even the most basic stuff with like playing as some of the legacy characters from the Star Wars franchise, like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and even characters like Aiden Versio, who is the main character of the campaign. It's a huge, huge grind for credits and also crystals, which are used to get, you know, from real money in order to unlock them. I mean, on average, or at least, you know, the main price point for characters like Luke Skywalker is 15,000 credits per character, or at least 15,000 credits for Luke Skywalker and for Darth Vader. And you get an average of about 100 to 200 credits per matchup. Now, that could be a real long grind when you're trying to get one of your favorite characters, even after completing the campaign and doing a bunch of the different arcade mode, scenarios, which is like the little just different, like, you know, small time matches or small maps that you could play on against AI opponents, or even with co-op. It still takes a while to do so in order to unlock, you know, some of the characters that you want, or even everything in the game. The things that are really confusing, though, to me, and obviously, you know, EA made a statement about it, which got the most downvoted votes, or at least was the most downvoted comment on Reddit for, like, you know, ever, period, which is absolutely insane. And it shows you the visceral reaction that everybody had about it. It's just insane to me that some of the design decisions that went into Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, at its heart, you know, to really start my impressions, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a pretty looking game. It's very shiny. I definitely can say that as far as the Star Wars like aesthetic, EA knocks it out of the park. DICE knocks it out of the park. They did the same thing with the previous Battlefront game, which I said in my previous review of it that I thought it was one of the prettiest Star Wars games around. And this is pretty much the same thing. There's a lot of eye candy in the campaign, in the multiplayer, in the solo arcade stuff, all over the place. Now, as far as everything else is concerned, as far as controls and stuff like that, I think it's good, which I'll get more into detail in a lot of the stuff when I finally post up the review this week. But really where the problems start to stem is not only in just how many credits that you earn and the restrictions that you're given in almost every mode of the game. What I find amazing is that EA, for whatever reason, thought it was a good idea to restrict the amount of credits that you could earn per day from the arcade mode. Like, for example, I was playing it yesterday, right? And I played maybe about 3 or 4, I want to say about average about 3 matches or 3 of the different scenarios, the battle arcade scenarios, before the game told me that I couldn't earn any more credits for another like 20 hours. And I was like, wait a second, I'm not even earning a lot of credits to begin with. Like, I'm earning like maybe 100, 150 credits per scenario. And there's only like 7 scenarios per light side and dark side for, in the battle scenarios in arcade mode. So it's really not a lot, even if you finish them all on both sides, light and dark side. But they want to restrict you per day to do that. And their reasoning, or at least from what a lot of people are gathering, it's to prevent people from farming the credits in order to get enough credits to purchase like the star cards, you know, to boost them up and to upgrade the weapons and such. But like, even then, it's just really confusing. So besides that, what really makes it even worse is that the people that bought the Ultimate Edition, the really expensive like collector's edition that comes with all this extra like boosters and extra stuff that you get on day one, those people get the ability to really power up and unlock the bulk of the stuff that's available in Star Wars Battlefront 2, giving them a huge, huge edge in multiplayer. And I mean, when I say huge edge, I mean like the actual gap between people that have bought the game standard edition or haven't really played a lot to the people that maybe have bought the Ultimate Edition or even grinded out for like a full day. there's a huge gap in the skill level. There's a huge gap in the amount of like, wins and losses you're going to see online. For me personally, in my own experience, having played a bunch of online matches and multiplayer in all the game modes, there you could tell the people that really kind of bought the Ultimate Edition because their star cards are maxed out, and they're maxed out on like day one or even with that extra week. Because I know that people that pre-ordered the game and got the Ultimate Edition, they had it about a week early over other people that got it on the original release date. So that kind of sucks because it really kind of puts you in a bad position where you either have to grind a whole bunch, within those restrictions that EA put on the game, or you have to spend real world money on it. Now, you can't do so now because those microtransactions are gone, which only adds more fuel to the fire. And eventually those are going to come back. I think it was Max or you, Rich, that told me that they're eventually going to come back at some point. But it really kind of makes some of those aspects that are supposed to be fun about Star Wars Battlefront 2 not as fun anymore, unless you've really kind of dived in and just threw your wallet at the game. That it's a real shame because Star Wars Battlefront 2, there's some good stuff in it. Again, but outside of the aesthetics, I think the campaign, for all its issues, it's still a decent enough campaign to expect from a game like this. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not excusing any of the problems with it. I think there's a lot of problems with continuity in the campaign. I think that the pacing of it is a little bit inconsistent because there's a lot of different moments thrown in there, without getting into spoilers, where you kind of switch control to like, classic Star Wars characters. It's like I feel like they threw them in there because they needed to have another pull or a hook for you to stay with it. It's a very short campaign, maybe about 3 to 4 hours, give or take, depending on how long you take to complete each mission. But they really tried. They really want you to care about a certain character, which is Javina Gavankar's character. Was it Iden Versio? And they really want to gas her up and really kind of, have her grow on you. But then all of a sudden, in random moments, they'll switch over to like, Han Solo, or they'll switch over early in the game. You'll switch over to Luke Skywalker. And there's like some threads that they try to kind of weave into there, here and there throughout the campaign, and they end off on a real big cliffhanger. And it's just kind of like they just end it right then and there. There's no real solid conclusion. And you're like, what the heck? Like there's something wrong here. Come to find out later on, I believe it's in the first week or second week of December, we're getting free DLC content based on The Last Jedi, which is going to be additional campaign stuff as well as also multiplayer stuff based on the new movie that's coming out. Now, I don't know how I feel about that because I almost feel a little bit cheated from the campaign, the way that it ended. And I can understand like the business model as far as like keeping players invested with the game over the long period. But all these decisions I've seen, implemented into the game, it really takes away the fun factor out of a lot of stuff. And it's a damn shame because this is Star Wars. This is a big game for EA. In the wake of Visceral getting shut down, and we're not getting the Visceral Star Wars game that we were supposed to be getting from Amy Hennig and that team over there. This is a shame that there's a lot of bad vibes going on right now with EA as far as the Star Wars brand. And funny enough, we were even talking about beforehand how there was a rumor that went around that one of the head execs over at Disney called up the head exec or the CEO of EA. And then shortly after that, all the microtransactions got pulled out, and there's been a lot of, I guess you could say damage control going on with Star Wars Battlefront 2. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on with this game. So hopefully, again, way after my review gets published on the site, because it's going up this week, probably in the next like day or so, because I need to play a little bit more of the multiplayer to really solidify, all my thoughts overall. But hopefully there's some updates that come for the game. I really want them personally to reduce the amount of credits it takes to unlock a lot of the content, to reduce the amount of credits it takes to upgrade the star cards, and as well as also the weapons, and really kind of fine tune a lot of the abilities and some of the other kind of like stuff you could do as the troopers or the heroes in the game, because the balancing is also way off. That's another thing I forgot to mention. The balancing in the game is just completely off the wall. Again, besides the star cards and all the stuff that people get an edge on within that first week or even on day one, it's just a lot of different things on there. When you lose, you'll be losing a lot, especially if you're just coming into the game fresh. But that's just my thoughts on the mix. So I'm curious to see where you guys stand on this from what's happened.
Well, first and foremost, excellent wrap up of Star Wars Battlefront 2, all of the issues, etc. I'm not going to go next. I believe I was going to let Mr. Gary go. Although I don't really know if Gary's going to be able to say too much, I will go ahead and start off, Gary, by saying I'm sure that they should have titled this game, instead of saying, the force is strong, I think the grind is strong with this one. So everyone that I have spoken to have complained about that in particular.
I like that. The grind is strong at this one. We gotta tagline that someplace. I like that. That's funny.
Yeah. So Gary, I don't know if I know you are a little under the weather. Do you have anything to say on this particular topic?
I mean, not too much because I kind of I made the decision to steer clear of this game ahead of time. But hearing everything that happened over the past week just confirms why I didn't trust EA to begin with. Even back at E3 when they showed a lot of footage for the game and people were getting excited, for the single player campaign, I knew that there would be something that they would mess up. And this week is just, confirmation of that. I think it's very bad practice, and the fact that the microtransactions are so deeply rooted inside the game just shows that their level of thinking, like they designed it to be this way from the beginning, and this is what they wanted to milk people's money based on the Star Wars name. So yeah, it shows their mindset, and people need to take this as a reason to stop supporting these practices in the games, and just make a stand, like vote with your wallet, vote against this horrible abuse of video games, to manipulate you to get you to spend money. And yeah, like I said in the chat, I wish I was a fly on the wall during that conversation between Disney and EA. I really would love to know what Disney's reaction was during that conversation, and because this news hit mainstream, so that was a big deal for Disney. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say on that.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. One comment that I will make, and then I'm going to give the floor to Max. I did notice that quite a bit of companies have been taking shots at EA. Right before we started recording, I saw that CD Projekt Red Twitter, they had some new details saying that there will be multiplayer in the Cyberpunk game that's coming out. And I saw one of the fans ask them if they were going to be like EA, and then they said, no, we're not going to be greedy like other companies. So, I mean, obviously everyone knows that this is what they were referring to. A couple other companies took shots as well, so I thought that was interesting. But
shout outs to Blizzard.
Blizzard. Yeah, shout outs to Blizzard. Max, you have any thoughts on this Star Wars Battlefront fiasco?
Yeah, definitely alongside what JJ said and everything. I guess at the end of the day, this was a long time coming. The past couple of months, there's been all sort of kind of loot box controversies, issues with microtransactions, people saying that they're going to speak with their wallets and not buy these games, but I don't know if that was really the case. Just a lot of internet warriors arguing against this sort of stuff. And to be honest, I thought these loot box issues were going to last a lot longer. I thought it was going to be a while before gamers kind of quote unquote revolted. But then it kind of makes sense that because EA got involved and messed around with people's Star Wars, you don't mess around with a nerd Star Wars. You just don't do that. You know what I mean? And this was the game that kind of caused everyone to be like, all right, this is enough. We're done with this. Loot boxes need to chill out. Microtransactions need to chill. And I'm happy that it was, of course, EA were the ones to be the ones that pushed it too far, because they're the ones that deserve most of this backlash. They're the ones that deserve a lot of this shit. I've been having some interesting conversations with some other gaming friends that I have, and one of them is he's very adamant that Blizzard is to blame for the kind of loot box revolution, not necessarily saying that it was their fault, but that they did it intentionally, but that because of the way they handled loot boxes in Overwatch and because they implemented them in that game, because you know how Blizzard takes ideas from other developers and kind of perfects them. That's always what they've done, because loot boxes were not created by Blizzard, no. But he's saying that they kind of like, quote unquote, perfected the loot boxes. They implemented them into a very addictive game. And because of that, companies like EA, they brought the loot box scheme to the mainstream, and other companies took heed of this. They saw loot boxes and they thought, hey, all right, how can I use this to make the most amount of money possible? That's like what EA did. They took that quote unquote good idea and made it a very bad idea. So it's interesting to me that, of course it was EA that did that, but I just think it's interesting because I don't know if you can really blame anyone for this sort of practice, because in my opinion, EA just would have found another way to do this sort of stuff. They would have found another way to maximize profits. Some other part of the game would have been neutered. Do you know what I mean? So it's like this loot box phenomenon. It's something that it just would have been something else another day. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been loot boxes. It would have been some other microtransaction issue. They would have found some other way to screw it up. But because it's loot boxes, and I'm just really happy to see that the revolution is starting now, because I know they're doing the same thing with Need for Speed too. They pulled microtransactions from that and they're like revamping them. And I'm sure that other companies who are going to go crazy about loot boxes are probably going to step back and take a look at how they're going to implement them from now on. Because I don't think loot boxes are gone. They're definitely not going to be gone. There's going to be other cases of this sort of stuff. This was a victory, but this was not like the war one. You know what I mean? There's definitely going to be some other shady practices, probably from EA themselves. I'm sure that when these microtransactions come back, there's going to be some other issue. Or maybe they'll just let Battlefront 2 go. Maybe they'll be chill with Battlefront 2, and then the next game, they'll have some sort of microtransaction issue. I know that even like with GTA 5, I know that some people are starting to get sick of the way Rockstar is handling that sort of stuff. So maybe with Red Dead Online, maybe some bad stuff will happen with that. Or not, we'll have to see. But it's not over. But I'm happy that we won. This is like the first big win for us against loot boxes and shitty practices. And that's really cool.
Absolutely.
I would just like to share an analogy with everyone. So, I just want to paint a picture. So let's say, one chef, decides to start up a restaurant and he starts selling, fried chicken or something. Let's hypothetically say fried chicken. And, he does it so good that people come to love this fried chicken. But then, down the street, another guy opens up a chicken shop and he starts sprinkling crack on his chicken to get people addicted so that they keep coming back to buy more and more chicken from his shop. Now, you can't blame that first guy for making legit good chicken, like that second guy is the one who's manipulating the system. So he's to blame for messing up, people's wallets by getting people hooked and addicted and willing to buy more and more chicken. So people, when people throw the Blizzard argument out there, yes, they perfected the loot boxes, but they did it right and they did it fair. EA are the ones that are now manipulating it and tying it directly into gameplay elements of their games. So you can only blame the abusers in the situation, in my opinion.
See, that's my argument for it too, because it's like this happens with anything. Like anytime a good invention or something comes out, there's always going to be people with bad intentions that take it and ruin it. That's just a thing that bad-hearted people do, because money. So it's just like, it's really hard to say Blizzard is the reason for this. Like, yeah, they brought loot boxes into the mainstream, but like they didn't have bad intentions with them per se. Like there's just those people with bad intentions that screw everything up for everyone. That's always what happens.
I have so many questions about the crack though.
Yeah, that's a very interesting analogy.
Very interesting and very specific analogy. Why not 11 herbs?
I'm sorry, it's because I had fried chicken for dinner yesterday and I'm still thinking about it. So that's why.
Did you have crack too?
I hope it didn't have crack in
it. So Dana, I know you've already spoken about some of the dislikes of Battlefield. Why don't do you have any other thoughts that you want to say about this controversy?
Battlefront. Yeah, my whole situation was that it outweighs the good parts of the game to the point where it hinders people. And say for the average person like me, I just want to play a game. I understand that there's loot crates and there's some people who can afford it. That's fine. But don't make it to the point where it hinders me from enjoying the basic parts of the game. So that's my issue. If you want, Darth Vader and all these different characters and different, weapons and stuff, that's fine with me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with having to work 40 hours for it compared to spending, $40 on it. That's okay. But to the point where I can't even move forward, and as JJ was saying, I have to wait an extra 20 minutes, in order to play the game again. I don't like that concept. I don't like that model at all. So just make it fair for everyone.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, one thing to add on that, it's not that you can't play the game more, is that you can't earn any more credits. Like they like stop you from being rewarded from from actually earning anything at some point. So like when you need credits to purchase more content or more stuff that you can use in multiplayer and other stuff, you won't be able to do that from the arcade mode, which sucks, which is a confusing design decision because you don't get a lot to begin with because the cost of everything is so astronomical, which by the way, for the record, I was doing some reading before. The cost for unlocking characters was so much more that beforehand, like earlier this week when the game came out, they reduced the cost of the characters by 75% at least, or 75 to 80%. It was originally like 60,000 credits to unlock Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. Mind you, okay, you're only getting 100 to 200, maybe 300 at the most per matchup. That's insane. Like and the statement from EA saying that they really wanted to have like, a sense of accomplishment for earning stuff. The point is that you have to be able to earn it in the first place. Like you have to be able to, it has to be realistic. I mean, granted, there's going to be people that really play this game for a very long time, but when you have something so synonymous with the brand, such as Star Wars, like Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Han Solo, Lando Calrissian, even some of the new characters, Rey, or any of the others, or Kylo Ren, that it's almost literally or nigh impossible to actually achieve that content or be able to obtain that content, people are just going to stop playing. People are just not going to have fun. They're not going to want to play that anymore, and they're going to complain about it. It makes you look bad for almost no reason. And now I understand the business savvy of it, where you need to have players like constantly playing your game, and you need them to have a reason to at least entice them to go spend real money or more money on top of the game from what they already bought. Like that, but I think it was just the wrong way to go about it. And it's interesting. You guys mentioned Overwatch. I think Overwatch went about it in a better way, but I still am not a fan of the whole loot box, thing over time type of ordeal. At least that the way that system works out. And I feel like it's necessary now in the industry because the industry is changing so much, and companies need more resources in order to stay afloat, or they need more resources in order to stay relevant and viable. Like that we're not going to see this go away. If anything, I feel like it's going to get worse. I think that with EA now, it's almost like, this is at least the point or the line that like they kind of can't cross at this point, or at least the line they could cross until somebody, or at least the majority of people, really get upset about it. And I don't think that this is the last that we've seen it, because we've seen other games do microtransactions at this point with Shadow of War not too long ago. What was it? We're going to see other games at some point do the same thing going forward. And watch it be other games that are big, high-profile games that we wouldn't expect them to do it, and then everybody's going to be upset about it.
I definitely see that happening. Absolutely. Man, you all had excellent points that you made about this. I don't really have too much more to add. I will just go back to what Max said earlier, how, and this is very ironic to me, how he said this was the one game that really got this thing to be a little out of control. I find it funny because the game is Battlefront, okay? So this is literally a battle between the consumers and the publishers now because of the microtransactions. So I thought that was hilarious when I saw all this was happening this week. But, it is going to continue. I'm very curious to see how all the other EA titles are impacted. Anthem coming out next year. I wonder if EA will be somewhat cautious. I don't think they will be cautious at all with any of these other games. But we'll see what happens. So any other thoughts on this topic before we move on to the next?
I got one more thing, actually. I've been seeing people like kind of defend Battlefront and be like, hey, at least they're listening. At least they're, making changes based on our feedback and shit. Don't believe that EA didn't know exactly what they were doing with this. Like, they implemented these changes implemented these things originally on purpose. This wasn't like an accident. This wasn't unforeseen. I mean, they knew exactly what they were doing. I don't think they expected this much backlash, but they didn't not do the calculations. They know every single thing they did in this game. That stuff doesn't go unnoticed. You know what I mean? That's just not how it works. They designed this game. They know it better than all of us. They know it inside and out. So don't defend these practices just because they're making changes. They're only making changes because they were either forced to or because the audience won't buy their game otherwise. Like, that's the only reason. They got caught. That's why. So, and like Rich, you just said, yeah, they are probably going to do it again. I don't know how badly they're going to cross the line next time or push the line. They're going to keep trying to find a way to push the line. We know this. Like, that's without question. So if they'll succeed in that, we don't know. I hope not. I hope that no one will let them push it further than this, but we'll see. I don't know.
Absolutely. And the main thing people should remember, because I saw everybody saying, oh, this is a win. This is a win. Well, it is a win for the consumer, but it is the temporary removal of all microtransactions. So as I believe JJ said, and you said also, Max, this is still a war going on. So you could say this is one victory won, but this will continue. So people need to be aware that this is not over. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's craziness.